Hello everyone and welcome. You are watching Eagle News America. I am Mayan Manzano Garzon coming to you from Sicklerville, New Jersey. Tonight we have live updates from several of our correspondents from across North and South America. May Davila in Ciudad de Panama reports about the extension of the suspension of international flights in Panama. Thomas Likeness in Edmonton, Alberta.
A Canadian political party leader has been kicked out of Parliament for calling another member a racist.
Philip Toledo in Atlanta, Georgia.
Georgia governor announces all nursing home residents tested for COVID-19, and the ex-Atlanta police officer to face murder charges.
Randall Feharan in Seattle, Washington.
Governor Inslee responds to COVID-19 surge in Central Washington.
Trish Nicole Paras in Panorama City, California.
Los Angeles observes Elder Abuse Awareness Day.
Plus, learn how to save your favorite hotspots and services during the pandemic. But first, an overview of how the world looks now. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine, as of 5 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday, June 17, 2020, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 8,200,000. This includes more than 2,100,000 in the United States and more than 101,000 in Canada. Sadly, this virus has claimed more than 445,000 lives worldwide. This number includes more than 117,000 deaths in the United States and more than 8,000 in Canada. Our coverage begins now. World Health Organization's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the dexamethasone steroid that UK scientists have shown to be an effective treatment for the most serious novel coronavirus cases is a very welcome breakthrough.
Dexamethasone, a common steroid, has been shown to have a beneficial effect on those patients severely ill with COVID-19. According to early findings shared with WHO, for patients on oxygen alone, the treatment was shown to reduce mortality by about 1/5. And for patients requiring a ventilator, mortality was reduced by about 1/3. However, dexamethasone was shown to not have a beneficial effect for those with milder disease who did not need respiratory support. This is very welcome news for those patients with severe illness.
Michael Ryan, head of World Health Organization's Emergency Response Program, says this drug can rescue those in critical conditions, but it is not a treatment for the virus itself.
It's exceptionally important that this drug is used under medical supervision. This is not for mild cases. This is not for prophylaxis. This is a very, very powerful anti-inflammatory drug. It can rescue patients who are in very serious condition where their lungs and their cardiovascular system around their lungs may be very inflamed. So this allows possibly the patients are able to continue getting oxygen into their blood from their lungs for a very critical period by rapidly reducing inflammation at a critical period in their illness. It is not a treatment for the virus itself. It is.
Ghebreyesus once again called for unity in tackling the COVID-19 crisis.
Together, we can achieve anything, and I'm encouraged by progress in tackling the Ebola outbreak in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. If there are no more cases in the next 7 days, the government of DRC will be able to declare the outbreak over. The lessons learned and experience gained by Congolese health workers are now being applied to inform the Ebola outbreak response in the west of the DRC, as well as broader lessons on testing and contact tracing, which are directly transferable for tackling COVID-19.
Meanwhile, U.S. Senate Republicans unveiled a police reform proposal Wednesday that would discourage but not ban tactics like chokeholds, provide for more de-escalation training, and require disclosure about officers' use of force. The legislation, which Republican Senate leaders said would be voted on next week, contrasts with a more sweeping measure introduced by House Democrats earlier this month as the United States faces a reckoning over police brutality. The dueling plans are responses to protest against racial injustice and police violence, which swept the nation following the May 25 killing of African-American George Floyd by a Minneapolis officer. Republican Senator Tim Scott said, quote, "The George Floyd incident certainly accelerated this conversation." The proposal would establish a commission that would launch a comprehensive review of police tactics. It would also require local departments to report all officer-involved deaths to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and require the funneling of key data into a national database aimed at weeding out bad cops. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said, quote, "We are serious about making a law here. This is not about trying to create partisan differences. This is about coming together and getting an outcome."
The witnessing of the murder of George Floyd and the experience in my hometown of Breonna Taylor certainly brings to the forefront this issue for all Americans, including Senate Republicans. The witnessing of the murder of
Instead of direct mandates, the Republican measure would incentivize change by denying federal grants to police departments that do not end the tactics of chokeholds or no-knock warrants. Scott, the bill's chief sponsor and the chamber's only black Republican, said, quote, "That, frankly, is by default a ban on chokeholds."
Let me start by simply saying that too often we're having a discussion in this nation about, are you supporting the law enforcement community or are you supporting communities of color? This is a false binary choice. The answer to the question of which side do you support, it's I support America. And if you support America, you support restoring the confidence that communities of color have in institutions of authority. We believe that the overwhelming number of officers in this nation are good people, working hard, trying to keep order in the communities. And then sitting down with the family members yesterday twice, once at the White House and the second time in my office, we went through the bill and what it does and what it doesn't do. They were, frankly, I think you heard in some of the media reports, they believe the bill is helpful. Does it take it to the level that every family member wants it to? I think the answer is probably not. Does it get us much closer? According to the words that I heard from the family members in both meetings, the answer is yes.
But the bill does not end or limit qualified immunity, the controversial doctrine that protects officers from being sued for misconduct. Scott said such inclusion in final legislation would be a poison pill for him, but he would be willing to discuss other options. The Democratic bill would restrict qualified immunity and ban chokeholds and no-knock warrants, which have been blamed in several cases of deadly force by police. Both parties appear eager to get a bill to President Donald Trump's desk before the July 4 recess. Civil liberties group ACLU criticized the Republican proposal, saying it does not respond to the moment. The organization said on Twitter, Americans, quote, need bold, visionary legislation that divests from police and shrinks their footprint and reinvest in the Black and brown communities that have been harmed by status quo policing. Coming up, updates from our correspondents in North and South America. We will return shortly. Stay with us. This is Eagle News America.
Patindi ng patindi at tuloy-tuloy ang pagpapakita ng galing ng ating mga TNG aspirants.
You're just too good to be true. Open up, you came to get a crunk with a dame, I should have drunk you back when I was a child.
Abangan ng kanilang performances sa pinakamalaking talent competition sa buong bansa, Tagisan ng Galing.
Tagisan ng Galing is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vetaproof Nutrichunks, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa Nutrichunks. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matimco, R Square Variables Incorporated, Compizel Enterprises, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, EMAC UPB Roof Corporation.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, San-Mig Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! San-Mig Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
The successful development of TPLEX, or Tarlac Pangasinan La Union Expressway in 2009, a 4-lane toll road that extends from Tarlac City to Rosario La Union, with an additional approved extension of 56 kilometers all the way to San Juan La Union. This is expected to reduce travel time to Baguio and other provinces in northern Luzon. Realizing the vision of creating a better world for Filipinos fueled the team's focus.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved Nutrichunks with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutrichunks.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit, lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten, sie wertschätzen.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganon din ang iyong hinalaki, kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong kalapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News America. I am Mayan Manzano Garzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey. Panama extends the suspension of international flights due to the spike in reported positive COVID-19 cases. In Ciudad de Panama, May Davila has the details.
Panama extended the suspension of international flights for the third time and until next July 23 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the resolution, the term takes effect from 11:59 p.m. on June 22, 2020. The new 30-day extension and adopted for reasons of public health was issued by the Civil Aeronautical Authority a week before an expiration on June 23, the current suspension, and appeared this Wednesday, published in the Gazeta Oficial. The suspension applies to commercial routes except for humanitarian flights and those that transport products, medicines, medical hospital equipment, vaccines, and public health supplies to face the coronavirus pandemic. This is the third extension since international flights were suspended for the first time on March 22, a decision that added to the previous temporary cancellation of trips to and from Europe and Asia and the prohibition of the entry of foreigners. During the pandemic, Panama has assumed the role of humanitarian hub for the reception and distribution of medical supplies for the country and the region. From the Tocumen International Airport, an important regional connection center, several humanitarian flights to Mexico, the USA, France, and Italy have departed in recent weeks, as well as having received other aircraft from Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Panama is experiencing a resurgence of COVID-19 with record numbers of daily cases in the last week, which led the authorities to re-implement the mobility restrictions by gender and identification number since June 8 in the capital and in Panama Oeste, the most populous provinces in the country. Health authorities linked the outbreak of the disease with the opening of the first 2 of the 6 blocks into which the revival of the country's economy has been divided. Air transport is included in the 4th block of the Economic Recovery Plan. The first started on May 13 and the second on June 1. There is still no date for the reactivation of the other blocks. Desde Ciudad de Panama, May Davila, Eagle News. Vivimos en tiempos interesantes.
Thank you, May. Unfortunately, there are a lot of countries and even states here in the United States that are reporting the spikes of their COVID-19 cases, thus the extension of suspension of international flights. How about you, Philip? How much do you miss traveling? Are there any travel plans or vacations that have been canceled because of these extensions?
That's a good question, May. And this month is actually the 7th anniversary of my marriage. And we had talked about taking, because we didn't get to do much last year because it was my son's first birthday, so we were focused on that. But this year we were planning to take, we didn't know where we were going to go, but we wanted to take a nice trip. But unfortunately with the virus and all the restrictions, we're not going to be able to go. But, even just today, while I was, I work hard when I'm at work, but, I was daydreaming at the same time thinking about where, maybe we could get away for a little bit because people are starting to fly again. It's just that there are some restrictions. If you think about it, now is probably the safest time to fly. Most of the major airlines are requiring passengers and airline workers to wear masks, so everybody's in a mask. When you're on the airplane, there's filters that circulate the air, once every, 2 or 3 minutes. So in a lot of aspects, it's safer than, at least from airborne transmission than if you were to go, to a crowded grocery store without a mask. It might be safer to fly. So I don't know. We're starting to toy with the idea. Well, we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Philip, and happy anniversary to you and to your lovely wife. I hope that you will have a local version of your vacation or celebration. How about you, Thomas? Any travel vacations that was canceled?
Yeah, we had to cancel our cruise, which we were going to go on in May. It was in May, early May, so kind of right in the middle of the pandemic. But I want to get back to airlines for a minute. We have a discount airline in Canada. A lot of airlines aren't selling that middle seat. We got 3 seated across. Discount airline, if you want the middle seat vacant, you got to pay $49. But they said, we're a discount airline. People want cheap tickets, so I guess they'll take the risk. And I guess they're selling a lot of middle seats. People want cheap tickets.
That's true. Well, sadly, your cruise has been canceled, Tom, but, I guess it was canceled for a reason, so we don't get jealous of your pictures cruising, with your wife on summer while we are all stuck at home.
And I miss getting all that B-roll for reports, but at least I'm 20 pounds lighter because I know what happens when I'm on a cruise.
That's true. How about you, Nicole? Any personal experience that is related to this cancellation of international flights?
Hi, Mayan. So my family actually experienced an international travel scare regarding my grandparents. Because every so often, grandparents who live in the Philippines would come here to America and stay for 6-month periods at a time. And so this time when they came over, they were supposed to leave March 17th. But that was around the time when, the quarantine, the whole lockdown took place. And so there was a lot of suspensions with international travel. So that flight actually got canceled. A lot of rebooking and rescheduling. And so we booked the next flight on April 5th. But that also got canceled. So the next one was April 11. That also got canceled. And then May 17, which also got canceled. And then finally, May 21st, the airline created a sweeper flight, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it's a special flight for only Filipino nationals to go back home to the Philippines. So only people with Filipino citizenship was able to board that flight. There's no tourism. It was only for the Filipino people to go back to their homes. And it was a scare that all of those flights got canceled, but luckily and fortunately my grandparents are able to go safely back home to the Philippines.
Right. Thank you, Nicole. That's probably for the best. The delays were for the best because we want our grandparents to be safe, right? All right. That's true. Thank you, Nicole. A Canadian political party leader was kicked out of Parliament for calling another member a racist. In Edmonton, our Alberta Bureau Chief Thomas Likeness has the story.
That's right, Mayan. The leader of a Canadian political party, he's persona non grata in the House of Commons, just for a day though, and he refused to apologize for calling another member a racist. It's called unparliamentary language. There's certain things you can say and not say in Parliament, and anything deemed unparliamentary, if you don't apologize, you're out. It involved New Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh. Now, Singh is a devout Sikh. He's the first non-white leader of a Canadian federal political party. He'd gotten into a heated argument with a Bloc Québécois MP, a member of Parliament from Quebec. Singh had asked the House to unanimously pass a motion that recognized systemic racism in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and it also called for a review of the police force budget. Now, he and the Bloc Québécois member, his name was Alain Therian, they exchanged words over Therian's refusal to support that motion. And then after another MP complained, Singh got up in the House and said, yeah, it's true. It's true. I called him a racist. Now, again, like I said, for his use of unparliamentary language and his refusal to apologize, the House Speaker ordered Singh out of the House for the remainder of the day's sitting. He'll be back tomorrow. But still with this issue, over the last couple of weeks, our Prime Minister has promised inquiries, he's promised reviews, a whole raft of things to deal with the issues of police, visible minorities, and racism. But, one of the difficulties is the results of all this research just often sits on a shelf, it gathers dust, nothing's done, or if any of it is adopted, it takes a long time. Prime Minister Trudeau says that's got to change.
I think one of the things that we've seen come to light over the past weeks and months is that our systems are not adequate to respond to the concerns that racialized Canadians and Indigenous Canadians and others who want to see a reduction of systemic discrimination in our institutions move forward quicker. So we are going to move much quicker on responding to these things, on making changes to our institutions to really go after systemic discrimination.
Hopefully that'll be sooner than later. But in the meantime, I wish you all good health. Take care of others. Take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and other current affairs. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Mayanne.
Thank you, Thomas. Can you update us on Canada's failure to win a seat on the United Nations Security Council?
Yeah, this is the second consecutive time that's happened where the country has made a bid for a seat. There's a bunch of temporary seats on the Security Council, and Canada again lost out to Norway and Ireland this time. The three countries in a race for the two coveted spots. Some of the reasons people have speculated on is why. Middle East policy is one thing. Canada's support of Israel has angered a number of nations, and that would, of course, cost it some votes. Also, the commitment Canada has to the United Nations. We talk a good story. But when it comes to actually spending on things like peacekeeping, our spending's way down there compared to others, which is way up here. So those are some of the reasons why I think they didn't gain the support that they needed this time around.
Thank you, Thomas. Now, on other news, Canada's inflation last month was at minus 0.4. Can you enlighten us on that, please?
Okay, we keep talking about second consecutive things. Twice in a row we lose a bid. Twice in a row we have negative inflation. Again, for 2 months in a row, minus 0.4% was our inflation rate for the month of May. Lower gasoline prices, one of the big reasons, because again, the demand for gasoline and petroleum products just isn't there. That's probably the major reason why prices are down. Items that went up, though, the biggest increases were in the grocery cart. Grocery store food went up, restaurant food went up, and that's understandable because it's just costing restaurants a whole lot more to operate, and the only way they're going to make ends meet is to raise the menu prices. Mortgage interest rates up marginally, and car insurance, but still it's a pretty affordable country to live in.
Thank you, Thomas. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp announces that all nursing home residents have been tested for COVID-19, and the ex-Atlanta police officer to face murder charges. In Atlanta, Bureau Chief Philip Toledo has the details.
Thanks, Mayanne. As of this afternoon, the state of Georgia has surpassed 60,000 positive cases of COVID-19, with a little over 2,500 deaths. The daily average of new positive cases continues to spike as the state continues its reopening. Now, it's been a little over a month and a half since the shelter-in-place expired, and as of now, most businesses can open in some capacity, just as long as they have proper sanitation and social distancing precautions in place. Now, a key focus during this reopening of Governor Brian Kemp has been an increase in testing. To date, there have been over 750,000 tests completed here in Georgia. Now, that number includes both diagnostic tests, which will tell you if you have an active infection, as well as the antibody tests that test for whether or not you've had it at some point in the past. Now, Governor Kemp recently announced, quote, an important victory in our fight against COVID-19, as all nursing home residents and facilities with 25 or more beds have been tested for the coronavirus. Now, these facilities house some of the individuals that are most vulnerable to this virus. The governor said, quote, we will not take our foot off the gas. In the days and weeks ahead, we will continue to ensure that vulnerable Georgians have the care and resources that they need as we work to limit exposure and spread. The governor went on to say, I commend the hard work of all of the public officials, health officials, and National Guard troops who helped our state reach this important goal. His press release also noted that over half of all nursing home residents that have tested positive have already recovered. Now, in other news, the Atlanta police officer that fatally shot 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks last Friday was formally charged with murder today. Atlanta District Attorney Paul Howard said police officer Garrett Rolfe had no justification for shooting Rayshard Brooks as Brooks fled, and further aggravated the case by kicking Brooks' body after shooting him. In total, 11 charges were filed against this ex-officer. Let's take a look.
So these are the charges that we have had filed today, signed by one of our Superior Court judges. These are the 11 charges against Officer Rolfe. The first charge is felony murder. This is the death that is as a result of an underlying felony, and in this case, the underlying felony is aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and the possible sentences for a felony murder conviction would be life without parole, or the death penalty.
Now, these charges come as protests spread across the city and country in outrage to respond to this incident. As we reported yesterday on the show, the Atlanta Mayor's Office is working to expedite reform in a police department at the center of several recent high-profile incidents involving use of force. We'll have more updates as this story develops. In the meantime, stay safe and stay well. In Atlanta, Georgia, Philip Toledo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Mayan.
Thank you, Philip. With the officer involved, arrested and charged with murder, what else do the protesters want?
Well, there's a lot of things that the protesters are hoping to accomplish. But one of the key things here in Georgia is we're one of only, I believe, 4 states in the country that does not have any type of formal hate crime legislation. And so that's one of the key things that we've seen protesters, especially this past weekend, trying to affect change in, is to get the state lawmakers to pass a bill that adds additional protections for people, basically making hate crimes much more severe to help reduce, any of those happening, or reduce the chance of, people committing such crimes, in the general public.
Thank you, Philip. Now going back to our COVID topic, it seems like the governor is very positive about the trends of the pandemic in Georgia. What is like in the community? Has the reopening been faced?
That's a good question. So, many of the other states, you hear them talking about phase 1, phase 2, so forth and so on. But here in Georgia, like I mentioned, our shelter-in-place expired at the end of April. And since then, it's really just been a matter of, do the businesses want to open or not? They put out a bunch of guidelines, but on the whole, a lot of times it feels like everything is normal, except there's just a lot of people in masks. Typically, Atlanta is full of traffic, and so when we were sheltering in place, one of the things I noticed is, you could get anywhere in just a few minutes just because there was nobody on the road. But now, just driving around to the grocery store, it's like I said, it almost feels like it's normal. But at the same time, the pandemic numbers are still there. The cases are still, really, when you look at it, the cases right now are comparable to what they were in the middle of the shelter in place as far as the total number of positive cases. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we go into the summer. The 4th of July holiday is coming up. And I know a lot of people that have been diehard sheltering in place, we're starting to get stir crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Thanks, Philip. It's good that Georgia is one of the states in the U.S. that's not actually reporting a spike in your COVID cases, unlike any other states here in the U.S. that have reopened pretty early relative to other states. Now, Thomas, I'd like to get your opinion on the part of the report of Philip on this officer charged with murder.
That's that's a very very explosive situation. I don't think they had any choice but to charge him, and it is up for the court, up to the courts to decide his guilt or his innocence, whether it was justified or not. But what you're dealing with there is so much pent up anger, and it's not pent up anger over the last few weeks. it's pent up anger over maybe the last few centuries, and again is coming to a head. I remember when I lived in the United States, we were just getting into things like affirmative action and civil rights and so on. There was a lot of anger then. How much progress has been made? Some will say none. But you've got a generation now that says, no, we've had enough. We're not going to take it anymore. The arrest in itself might extinguish some of that flames of anger, but nowhere near all of them.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Up next, more updates. Eagle News will return shortly. Stay with us. This is Eagle News. You are watching Eagle News America. I am Mayan Manzano-Garzon in Sicklerville. As several Washington counties enter Phase 2 of the state's reopening plan, Governor Inslee responds to the COVID-19 surge in Central Washington. In Seattle, Bureau Chief Frendel Tejeran has the story.
Thank you, Mayan. So yes, here in Washington State, there are many counties that continue to open up to Phase 2 of Phase 4 of the Safe Start Plan of Governor Inslee. However, there are certain parts of Washington that have had a COVID-19 surge, more positive cases in the last week or so. And so Governor Inslee actually went up to Yakima and met with them, and just to make sure that they have sufficient amount of supply and manpower to cope with the surge. Also, he brought with him some hope. When I say hope, it's because while everyone else is reopening to and advancing to other phases, he wanted to make sure that these parts in Central Washington also look ahead to the future and to be positive. So he actually sat down with business, health, and elected leaders to come up with a plan to reopen responsibly. And the good news is that everyone that was there with Governor Inslee has shown commitment to following this plan so that they too can progress forward to Phase 2. Now, speaking of Phase 2, here in Pierce County, many of the restaurants are open, people are going to dine out, recreating responsibly. And I had the privilege of speaking to an individual by the name of Angelica, who actually went out with a couple of her family members to a restaurant just the other day. And I'm so glad I'll be able to share her story with you. Angelica tells us how often she dines out pre-COVID times. And we're gonna find out if after this experience, she is willing to go back to that amount of times moving forward. Let's hear what she has to say.
Well, pre-COVID, I would usually dine out about 4 to 5 times a month.
Perfect. So 4 to 5 times a month, that's actually a little less than how I used to be pre-COVID times. But, Angelica also was able to express how she felt, with this new experience, during the pandemic, and also tells us a little bit how the new standard is at this particular local restaurant. Here's what she has to say about that.
Well, I was a little bit confused and concerned because I thought that we weren't going to do that quite yet, but I was pleasantly surprised to know that they take reservations and, you can just go and have dinner. You go present yourself with your mask and you sit at the table, and then once that's done, you enjoy it. Actually, I did not. The waiters had their mask at all times, so it was a buffet style, which was a little unusual because you sat down at your table and you told the waiter what you wanted, and they brought it to your table without getting up and making it more safe and less traffic at the salad per se. That's sidebar. Yeah.
So from her first experience just the other day, do you think Angelica is ready to resume with her dining out 4 to 5 times a month? Let's hear what she has to say about that.
Maybe not quite that often, but I probably will surely move towards that direction. Yes.
So in fact, there are many people who are testing the waters and going out and dining out. And there are two groups of people. Either they're gung-ho about it, they're like, yeah, this is great, I'm gonna continue doing it. And there's others that are like Angelica, who are just gonna wait a little bit longer before they can go back to pre-COVID habits when it comes to dining out. So for Washingtonians, as we continue to comply with the guidelines and to show our care for not only our family, but the community and ourselves, we will all be able to be like Angelica and continue to recreate these memories responsibly at our favorite restaurants. Seattle, Washington, Frendel Feheran, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Mayan.
Thank you, Frendel, and it's a great interview. Now, how do you personally feel about dining out at this point in time?
Thank you for that question, Mayan. So for me personally, I'm not gonna go dine out. And the reason for this is because there are still people who are walking around in crowds, or not crowds, but yes, groups. They're going grocery shopping without wearing their mask. And I had actually an experience of, ordering takeout, and just sitting there with my mask on, I started to feel my anxiety levels go up a little bit because people weren't still taking precautions. So until I see better practices around my area, I think until then, I'm not gonna dine out. I'll just order out.
Yes, because you mentioned in your report that you used to dine out more than 4 to 5 times a month. So
That's right, Mayan.
I know, I'm curious if you're still comfortable doing that, but you said not. And yeah, I can definitely relate with what you said, that no matter how cautious we are with ourselves, for ourselves and our family, but seeing the people around us whenever we go out, if they're not wearing masks or practicing social distancing, that's very alarming. Now, which phase is the majority of Washington in right now?
So the majority of the counties, Mayan, are in phase 2. Back to you.
Right. Now, what are the allowances for phase 2, Frendel? What is happening in Washington with your phase 2? What are the stores that have been reopened?
So a lot of the stores like Ross, I don't know why, Ross is a great store. Everyone's so excited about Ross. There's a long line outside of Ross. So that's one of the things that are open. And additional allowances, Mayan, is that, we can go see our hairstylists, we can go to the salons, we can see our master estheticians, our manicurists, again, nail salon. I know a lot of the females out there would like to get their mani-pedi, so they can do that now. And they can also get their pets groomed. They can go and they can actually continue, for those worshipers, they can now gather in groups of 50. And so with all of these allowances, there are guidelines. And the majority of the restrictions is that they could only take in 50% of the max capacity inside their building. And so what we would like to share with everyone, all the Washingtonians and everyone who's gonna come visit us one day, is when you go out during these times, just remember that each establishment has a set of guidelines that they have to abide by. And so what we can do as citizens, as residents, is to go with our masks, do what we can, and also comply and be flexible to the new standard. Back to you, Mayan.
That's right. Thank you for that reminder and for all this information, Frendel. Now, how long does a county have to wait before applying for the next phase?
So each county, before applying to the next phase, they actually have to wait at least 3 weeks. Back to you.
I see, 3 weeks. Okay, so I guess we're all waiting for the stage 4 or the final stage, which we call the new normal. Now, thanks again, Frendel, for that report. Stay safe and stay well.
Thank you, Mayan. You as well.
Los Angeles County observes Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Eagle News correspondent Trish Nicole Paras has the story.
Thank you, Mayan. The Los Angeles County Adult Protective Service Department partners with other county departments like the LA County Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Services to spread awareness of elder abuse and protect the older residents of Los Angeles County in observance of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. The World Elder Abuse Awareness Day was launched in 2006 by the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. By 2011, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted a resolution marking this initiative as one of its international days to be observed every June. According to the United Nations website, in 2017, 1 in 6 older persons were victims of abuse. In the United States, the Justice Department estimated that every year at least 10% of the older population are subjected to mistreatment. And now, with many having to confine themselves at home as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the risk that the number of cases of exploitation, endangerment, and harm to elderly adults will rise is something that must closely be monitored and acted upon. But what is elder abuse? Typically, this type of crime is identified as physical, financial fraud, scams and exploitation, caregiver neglect and abandonment, psychological, and sexual. Signs that an elderly person is suffering from abuse can include bruises or other injuries, unkempt appearance, loss of appetite, loss of weight, refusal or reluctance to see a healthcare provider, and withdrawing from families and friends. There are various local and county agencies that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to receive calls and reports of suspected elder abuse, such as Adult Protective Services, the Department of Public Social Services, and of course, law enforcement. If abuse is suspected, Angelinos are requested to report this by calling one of the above-mentioned agencies. Officials want to remind everyone that the elderly are among the most vulnerable in our society and that we are all responsible for keeping a vigilant watch over them. In Los Angeles County, the number of new COVID cases increased with 2,129 newly reported cases and 34 new deaths. The total number of confirmed cases in the county are 77,189, with 2,991 deaths, as announced today by the Los Angeles Public Health Department. Meanwhile, the state of California now has 157,015 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 5,208 deaths, as recorded by the California Department of Public Health. In Panorama City, California, Trish Nicole Paras, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Mayan.
Thank you, Nicole, for that very timely report. Now, aside from being forced to shelter at home, are there any other factors stemming from this coronavirus pandemic that could potentially contribute to the strain on people who live together?
Well, a very prominent one that we know is job loss, which can take a very toll on a person's mental and emotional outlook. COVID-19 has left many people in financial distress, which is why the rollout of Stage 3 of the county's Roadmap to Recovery is so important. But of course, we're all really looking forward to the Stage 4.
I agree, Nicole. We are all waiting for our new normal, the Stage 4. Now, speaking of the elderly, I have in good authority that you are very close to your grandparents. In fact, you talked about them earlier at the beginning of this program. Now, what can you share with us about your relationship with them?
So my parents, they live in the Philippines and they come here to the States in 6-month intervals to spend time with us because we're the only members of our family who are in the States. Everyone else is in the Philippines. And so recently they went back home to the Philippines about a month ago. And so every day we video call each other, we talk to each other, whether it's a quick hi or we talk about the foods that we eat or what we cook in the kitchen. And actually food and the kitchen is a very special place for my grandparents and I, because my grandmother, when she was here, she became the main chef of the house. And so when she went back to the Philippines, we missed a lot of her home cooking. And so whenever we video call, sometimes she'll give me advices or talk to me about what to do with the food here, so that we can have a taste of her cooking here, even if she's not physically with us.
Thank you, Nicole. That's a very interesting and fun story with your about your relationship with your grandparents. We all love our Lolo and Lola's home cooking. Now, up next, ways to help save our favorite hotspots and services during the pandemic. This is Eagle News. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News America. I am Mayan Manzano-Verzon in Sicklerville. We have all developed new habits from sheltering in place. But if we want our favorite restaurants and salons to still be there when life gets back to normal, we have to do our part now. Eagle News correspondent Michael Hudson shares with us 5 steps we can take to save our favorite businesses. Take a look.
Do you want to know how you can help your small businesses right now during this economic shutdown? Keep watching and I'll give you 5 awesome tips you can use right now that you can do to do your part in helping your local businesses. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips you can use to help your local small businesses. Give me an S. S, you got your S, you got your S. Give me an M. M, you got your M, you got your M. Give me an A. A, you got your A, you got your A. That's kind of a lot of letters, don't you think? It's no secret already that the shelter-in-place is in full effect and the majority of businesses have been shut down. Though some states have their phase plans already in place to bring their infrastructure back to normalcy, there are still millions of businesses who have been deeply affected in a negative light. If you didn't know already, just over 30 million small businesses reside in the United States alone, which makes up 92% of the total businesses in the entire country. So it's at no surprise that these local businesses need help, especially with over half still closed due to shelter-in-place restrictions. A small business is normally categorized as a business with 1,500 employees or less. So for example, it can be your mom and pop restaurant, an up-and-coming spa and nail salon, or a tech company that provides social media or digital marketing help. So with these tips I'm about to share, I hope that they will give you a fresh perspective on how much these local businesses need any type of economic stimulation, whether it be you directly buying from them or spreading the words to friends and loved ones who are in need of their product or service. So the number one thing is order takeout. And obviously this is going to pertain to 99.9% of restaurants in your area. And I know that we're all tempted to cook at home because 1, it'll save us money, and 2, it'll prevent us from going out. But in this day and age, most restaurants have their own delivery infrastructure in place already if they're not using other delivery services such as DoorDash and Uber Eats or both. Even as little as ordering takeout, just 1 meal a week can really pay dividends down the road for the restaurant that's trying to survive during this tough time. Personally, I set aside money that I get every single week and I order from different places through DoorDash. And this is a double whammy because not only am I supporting the restaurant that I'm buying food from, but I'm also supporting the DoorDash driver who's working and trying to make a living as well. So the number 2 way you can support your local business is to buy a gift card. Even if their storefronts are closed, you may still be able to buy gift cards from your local businesses. This is especially a good way to support the places you visit on a regular basis. So for example, if you usually get a facial or get your hair done a few times a month, buying a gift card from them for the cost of those appointments, and then you use the card when business returns to normal. That way, the business owner can get the money straight away up front as opposed to when they reopen. Additionally, those funds can help them get through this period of reduced operations. The number 3 thing is to shop locally from home. So many retail businesses have some online ordering available. However, smaller local retailers may not have full e-commerce shops set up. Instead, they're finding creative ways to serve customers, including posting merchandise on social media, hand shopping via the phone with curbside delivery, and developing special kits and packages made for staying at home. So for example, places like hardware stores and plant shops in my area have heavily utilized the curbside delivery method, and though it's been an adjustment, customers have been able to get the things that they need. Look up your favorite store and see how they're meeting customers' needs in this challenging time and coordinate accordingly. So the number 4 thing is to keep everyone safe. Those who own and operate local businesses that continue to serve the public are putting themselves at risk for the sake of their business and for their customers. You may help reduce the risk by using credit and debit cards instead of cash, and by maintaining good social distancing practices throughout the store. So if you're having something delivered, see if you can pay in advance and have the driver leave your items at the door. And if you're feeling sick, ask a family member or roommate to pick up your food or merchandise for you. And lastly, the number 5 thing is be a cheerleader.
Give me an S, give me an M.
Just kidding. Buying from local businesses isn't the only way to be supportive. You can follow businesses on social media and share content with friends and loved ones. For instance, leave a positive review on Yelp or Facebook, and just to say thank you or how much you like the product. In this day and age, social media and video is huge when it comes to getting the word out on great products and services. And at the end of the day, everyone can use a little extra kindness right now, and those methods generally do not cost you anything at all. As we close the video, I just want to take the time to really thank all of the business owners who continue to brave the storm and continue to thrive. And being a small business owner myself, a lot of adjustments and pivoting have taken place. What I can say is that this rough time should be really looked at as an opportunity to really evaluate every aspect of your business and see what needs to be improved upon and what needs to be doubled down on as far as increasing revenue.
Michael Hudson reporting, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, Michael, for those very useful and practical tips. Now, Frendel, is there any local business, a salon or a restaurant that you fear will close down because of the pandemic?
Thank you for the question, Mayan. There is a local coffee joint that we love, and I actually don't fear that they're going to close down only because how great they are. It's called Cool Bean Espresso, and they were established in 1998, but we think their fraps, their hot drinks, cold drinks, everything is just on top. Like, hopefully one day you can try it all the way out there in the East Coast, Mayan.
Yes, hopefully, Frendel, and that's good to hear that you're confident they're not going to close down, because I believe it's really your favorite local business in your area. How about you, Philip? Any favorite restaurant or salon that you would want to support to serve in order for them to survive?
So if I had the choice between a salon and a restaurant, I'm probably going to go with a restaurant. And there's this place close by. It's called Heirloom Market. And get this, if you like Korean barbecue and you like Southern barbecue or Texas, well, that's a whole separate show. But Texas barbecue, it's a fusion of the two. And they have the best Korean flavored smoked meats and mac and cheese, and I'm going to go to bed hungry tonight just talking about it, but it's a great local spot here in Atlanta.
Sounds really good, Philip. I'm jealous that they are there in Atlanta, Georgia, and not here in New Jersey. How about you, Thomas? Any favorite store in your area that you would want to support, or you've already
there's a small restaurant, Casina Filipino. I love it there. They've been surviving on curbside right now, even though places are allowed to open. They're still sticking with curbside. You phone your order in advance, and you pick it up. But yeah, I really hope they make it. I think they will. They work hard. A couple of families own that, and I just want to see them make it. And the food is great. The food is great.
That's good to hear. Filipino food will always be my favorite too. How about you, Nicole? There in California, in your area, any favorite store?
Hi, yes, it's also a Filipino restaurant, a small Filipino restaurant by the name of House of Grill, and it's very close by here to our home, and it's just delicious. It's a very home cooked meals. You'll feel like you're in the Philippines.
Oh, that's so nice. Is there a specific dish that you miss from that store?
Actually, we ordered takeout from it a few days ago, and we always get their fried chicken. They have a very good fried chicken recipe that we get every time, and also their garlic fried rice is just very good too.
Ooh, all right. Thank you so much for sharing those favorite local businesses in your area. Now, before we let you go, we continue to thank our frontline and essential workers with a round of applause. We appreciate you. And congratulations also to Class 2020. We are proud of you. Aaron Nolasco, Amber Nolasco, Ruta R. Mawigoa, congratulations. Saula Auli, congratulations, class of 2020. And Alai C.F. Kiani. That is today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I am Mayan Manzano Garzon here in Sicklerville, New Jersey. We live in interesting times.
Mga kababayan, naharap na naman po tayo sa mabigat na pagsubok na ito. Ito yung COVID-19.
I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's safe.
Nandito po kami para hikayatin pa po kayo na maging matibay.
Mas maging matatag po tayo and